often, fantasy worlds fall into the same old trap. Elves in a forest, dwarves in a mountain, kingdoms that all look like medieval Europe. Although that's not a bad thing, your world deserves more than just a typical fantasy. So today on the Bearded Nerd podcast, we're digging into how to design unique cultures and societies, not just for variety's sake, but to make your world feel alive, diverse, and worth exploring. I'll give you the tools, frameworks, and examples to help you break out of the copy and paste trap and start crafting civilizations that feel meaningful. So, grab your world map and your lore journal, and let's dive into this episode of the Bearded Nerd podcast. As a cultural historiographer, I want to go ahead and define what culture is in regards to world building. Culture is not just clothing or cuisine. It's beliefs, power structures, daily rituals of the people, their languages, their symbols, and what people fight for and what they fear. Think of culture as the operating system of a people. It determines how they act, think, and react. Let's use the dwarves of my homebrew world of Ecopia as an example. The dwarves of Ecopia have a monotheistic faith system that is represented in their monarchy. There are 5 kings and queens with a high king or high queen that rules over all the dwarves. They have certain daily rituals that are focused and centered around their god, centered around discipline and art. And what I mean by art, it's the art of molding earth, the art of their vocation. So if they're a smith, a merchant, a farmer, whatever it may be, they have rituals that are focused on that art, so to speak. Certain symbols, runes, languages that are known only to the dwarves, besides the dwarvish language that maybe someone could learn. They have kind of like secret communication, or they have secret languages between one another and things like that. They fight for family, they fight for tradition, they fear change in a big way. So that's an example of the dwarven culture. For your game, whoever you want to choose, start with that. Start with those prompts and then build from there. And one thing that you can absolutely allow your culture to be influenced by is environment and geography. Where does that culture take shape? How is it affected by the manner in which they live? Are they desert nomads, such as in Dune, where their culture of survival is based on Arrakis? Are they a swamp-dwelling culture with city-states that have radically different survival needs than that of a desert nomad? Again, both are shaped by survival, but are completely different. Perhaps a cliffside civilization builds upside-down houses and reveres wind as something divine. Moving from there, it's completely foundational and great to build upon technology and resources. And to be honest, there are 5 different foundations to build a unique culture. I've mentioned environment and geography. I've mentioned resources and technology, which I will dive into in just a few moments. But religion and spirituality, power struggles, and the way they rule, monarchy, a council, an oracle, whatever it may be. But that style of ruling plus social customs are going to be a great foundation to building a unique culture. As I mentioned before, resources and technology. What do they have access to? What have they invented to survive? That technology will shape a culture. For example, a tundra tribe or a tribe located in a tundra environment maybe trades fermented whale oil as currency and uses bones as writing systems or as a weapon, right? Or just tools in general. Those type of things influence in a deep way. Religion and spirituality. If we know something about that in our world, is that there's a huge way religion and spirituality shapes culture. Do they worship gods, ancestors, nature, or something else? How does the faith affect their daily life? Right? Let's say a society that believes in a star type pantheon, or that the souls of their ancestors are in the stars. Therefore, at night is a time where they can commune with their ancestors. Or perhaps they restrict travel at night to avoid disturbing the sky so that the souls of the dead can travel peacefully, right? Those are different things that are going to affect your culture. From there, power struggles. We've talked about it before. Who holds power? Is it a king? Is it a council, an oracle? How are they chosen? How are they elected? What continues power in your culture or in that part of the world? And then lastly, social customs. How do they treat guests? Do guests have guest right? What's taboo? What marks adults and child, differently? Is it weird to, let's say, cry, or is it discouraged to cry and shed excess water because water is so restricted, aka Arrakis, Dune, right? What are the social customs? Do they salute? Do the knights of that area salute their enemies in a one-on-one battle, or when they're in battle they salute them beforehand, aka the Knights of Salamnia, or Salamnia, however you want to pronounce it, in Dragonlance Chronicles? Those are things you can think of and use as your foundation for your culture. Now, the cool thing about this is that when you're writing this culture, when you're developing this part of the world building, you don't have to build the culture in a vacuum. I absolutely encourage you to build them in opposition or in relationship to one another. Maybe there's a culture that fears the sea while another culture worships it. Maybe there's a culture that loves science and clashes with one rooted in superstition and magic. I do this in my own game, and that cultural tension adds fuel for my story. A great example would be the Alessiani kingdom or empire, actually now in my game. The Alessiani empire is a empire, think of it like steampunk Rome, and it's inhabited mostly by gnomes who are all logic science based. They only view the world from a scientific perspective, from a logical perspective. And every time they are brought into the fold or into some sort of grand meeting of sorts, they always bring a scientific approach. Although you might say, well, what's the tension there? Well, think about it. If there's a cleric involved, or if clerics are in the area, they're not seen as someone who is friendly towards this group. They're actually seen as outcasts because they rely on a god versus science. But for your game, whatever the belief would be, whatever that culture, whatever that tension may be, you want to make it believable. You want to make it where you are garnering the reaction from your players, where they're thinking to themselves, wow, that's wild, but it makes sense, right? We want to make sure that they are understanding the why. So the way we do this is by embedding cultures into gameplay. And the way we do that is by following these 4 different tips. Number 1, utilize custom greetings or slang. Create holidays and festivals that the players can witness, and offer cultural specific gear, food, and traditions that they can interact with, and then introduce the face or the NPC with those strong cultural views. Let me break it down. For example, using a custom greeting or slang, you can do something as simple as a gesture, or you can create a completely different language and even have a saying of some sort. Instead of saying hello or good morning, you can say, good day, may the all father, all smith bless you. Something like that, right? You can create something of that nature, which will then help with all the other aspects, but really help with the immersion. From there, you can create a holiday. So maybe it's the Festival of the Allsmith, celebrating some sort of sacred day. Maybe it's the day where, in their religion, the Allsmith forged the world. So it's kind of like that main festival, major holiday in their religion. Think of it like that holiday. There's minor holidays and then minor and major holidays, right? So let's look at it like in Christianity, where you have Christmas and Easter being major holidays or holy days as the origin or the origination of that term comes from. And then you have minor holidays. So think of it like that. Cultural specific gear, that's the part that makes me really excited. You can make maybe spears or bows or axes or hammers or swords depending on that culture that makes them more unique. Think of the Martells, think of Dorne from Game of Thrones. They were known as people who used dirks and spears in combat. So think of that. Maybe the culture, based upon their environment, uses a particular weapon. Well, create that weapon that's available for the players. Same thing with food. You can absolutely borrow food and traditions from other places that you've experienced or that inspires you, right? So, for example, I really love Middle Eastern food and cuisine. You can totally have the elves of your world expressed in that food, right? It doesn't matter. You don't have to follow the rules at the end of the day of previous TTRPGs. You can just write them yourself. And obviously, you need a face that kind of represents them. Write an NPC with that cultural viewpoint. And maybe they clash with the party. Typically, those are the best NPCs anyway. Make it a challenge. Make it an NPC that challenges the party's views. But again, you have the power to write all this and to really influence it. But again, designing a believable culture, it isn't just world building. It's immersion of your players at its finest. When your players realize that they're in a place with history, values, and people who live by those rules that are way different than your players' rules or the character's rules, that's when the world becomes real. So next time you sit down to build, start with those 5 foundations and let your imagination run deep, not just wide. If this episode gave you a spark, share it with your players, share it with your fellow GM. And if you want to grab this week's Cultural Design Blueprint as a PDF, join us in the Guildhall on Patreon. Until next time, y'all, keep crafting deep roots and vibrant rituals for your world. Keep world building, be kind and compassionate, and as always, y'all, keep gaming.